installed. It's kind of scary.
That is kind of scary, honestly.
It's so scary to me.
Well, I got the semi-truck registered today. Went on this maiden voyage joyride and was driving through this canyon, and I think my head gasket just blew. So my buddy Trayson came in his F350, and we're going to attempt a flat tow with this thing. We're only like 5 miles from home, but it's all canyon driving from here. But we have an old F350 and a bunch of optimism. So let's get this done.
So much optimism.
It's gonna be fun. Strap this air tank externally for a little extra air capacity while we run home. It's plumbed right into the truck. Alrighty, let's try this thing. Shoulder's just big enough to fit us. Also, sorry, this windshield is still not clean. I was hoping to make it to the gas station and clean it today, but we had a change of plans. Alrighty, we're off the highway now, so it should be smooth sailing all the way home. Some nice sunset clouds and mountains off in the distance. We can't be too sad about today. We will rebuild. Yeah, we're getting kind of low on air, but I don't feel the brakes dragging yet. We are almost home, so let's roll. All right, the truck is home safe and sound. Gonna do a few test bumps here because I'm kind of curious to see if any fluid is in the cylinders. So let's see. Well, the engine doesn't seem to be locked up. Oh. Well, it doesn't sound good. That's floored right now.
We get it, you vape.
Don't sound too right. Well, that's coolant in the exhaust. Not a fun sign. Obviously, a ton of pressure is going into the coolant system right now. Alrighty, right now we do have exhaust getting into the coolant system, as well as our coolant and oil is mixing. So we got a lot of things that aren't right now. The plan for today is to pull this head off just so we can start inspecting, try to figure out what actually went wrong. Maybe it's head gasket. Now this truck does have like 900,000 miles, and I don't think the engine's been rebuilt. So I had plans to rebuild this engine anyways, but I was hoping to push that bill down the line a little ways. I definitely had plans to use this truck for a couple little jobs. So if we pull the head off and it's just a head gasket, I might try to throw a new head gasket on, throw it all back together. No machine work or anything, see if we can get lucky. So we can maybe get another 3,000 miles out of this engine and I can do the jobs that I was hoping to do with it before we really tear into this truck. Alrighty, to start things off, I'm pulling this big pin that holds these two halves of this shift tower linkage together. So once that's pulled out, I can slide all this shift linkage off to the side and we get much better access to the side of the engine. So pull that off to the side. I go ahead and tackle this solenoid that was mounted there and pull the linkage the rest of the way out. Now I'm tackling all these little bolts that hold the intercooler to the intake manifold. The whole unit there is a water to air intercooler. So now that it's loose, pull this air line out of the way. Then I tackled this air line that went from the air cooler to the injection pump, which I think is a boost tube. It's where the injection pump can know how much boost pressure it's dealing with, so it can send the right amount of fuel. But next I'm tackling this upper mount where the charge pipe feeds into the intercooler. Repositioning here, that whole tube gets wiggled out. Now this intercooler is slotted into these two coolant passages, front and rear. And the rear was a lot more rigid, so it slid out a lot better, but the front tube was longer and not mounted as securely, so that junction needed a little more encouragement, but I was able to pry against it and get that intercooler out of the way. Now that that's out of the way, I'm tackling all these fuel injector lines, undoing them all at the top where they feed into the head, and then off the pump. Once that's all undone, pull them all out of the way. I'm removing all these intake elbows and all the bracketry holding on this air filter, as well as the crankcase breather, this road draft tube. Now I'm trying to pry against this exhaust V-band, which is really seized and rusted on, but eventually got it out. And then the rest of the exhaust was still rusted together, but after beating on that, that freed up. I'm undoing this rear mount. And then the CGT probe was swelled on the tip, so I couldn't get it to slide back out through its fitting. So after beating on it for a while, it eventually just broke. But that's okay, because it wasn't reading before anyways. There's this little rubber coolant hose that I pulled out of the way, and then undid some electrical sensors as well. So now I can get all this wiring off to the side. Also remove this upper radiator hose. It slid out pretty easily. Now I can tackle this other coolant crossover tube, which the thermostat housing is that part up top mounted on the side of the head, and then that passageway connects it down to the water pump that's mounted lower on the block. Now I'm tackling a little coolant line that is fed into the air compressor to keep the air compressor cool. And also there's this whole front bracket that connects the head to supporting the rest of this fan bracket. And it also supports the tensioner for your alternator, so I had to loosen all that stuff out so that this whole bracket could slide up and out of the way. And we can't forget about the old oil filter bolted on the back side of the engine. I've been trying to put all my bolts back where they belong, because if they're just strung out all over the place, I'll probably lose them or forget where they go. Now I'm tackling the valve covers. They're in 4 pieces, with upper half and lower half. So now the upper halves are gone, and now I can remove the lower halves. So now we have a full view of our valve train. And now I can start tackling all these head bolts, which they are torqued so tight. But now I'm following a pattern that's opposite of the pattern you follow when you're torquing down the head. And I did 2 passes where I would just do a quarter turn all throughout the pattern, and then reset and do another quarter turn, and that pretty much took all the torque out of the bolts. There was a little coolant fitting on the front of the engine right here that was blocking one of the head bolts. So I kind of had to rotate it out of the way a little bit so then I can get to that head bolt. And this engine has 6 head bolts per cylinder, so there are quite a few head bolts to get out. So it was a little tedious going through the whole pattern, and doing 2 passes, and trying to, as gently as possible, relieve the torque from the head. So these bolts here are also head bolts, but they also run through the rocker arms, so that's why they're much longer. But once all the rocker arm assemblies were loose, I could dislocate all the push rods, although I think these are called push tubes technically. They are hollow. And then I hopped over back to this side of the engine because I almost forgot to undo my turbo feed and drain lines. So I am leaving the whole turbo and exhaust manifold bolted to the head. It's not going to take this impact, and since all the torque is relieved from these bolts, I just buzz them all out of the way. And there's also this row of little bolts that help hold down this side of the head that you got to make sure to remove. So now I sneak this forklift in over the head with this big fork extender. Now I'm just strapping everywhere I can to this head, supporting it in 4 points so it's nice and stable, and also this thing's so heavy that the more ratchet straps the better. So I'm able to start pulling up on it. It pops loose pretty freely. Although I left all the head bolts in, mainly because I was being lazy, but also I wanted to keep the whole rocker arms kind of just chilling in there, so I left those head bolts through the rocker arms. But that caused the lower threads to kind of grip this spacer plate and try to pull it up with it. And the spacer plate was trying to grab a hold of this dowel pin still, so I gently massaged it loose with a screwdriver and pry bar. So at that point I was able to pull everything off for good. The spacer plate could join if it wanted to. Came back and put the spacer plate back where it belongs, and carefully tried to sneak this head out from under the truck. It's kind of hard with a forklift that's not designed for off-road and being in a bumpy, muddy field, but we got it out of there. Alrighty, here's the head, and here's the verdict. We have cracks in our head all over the place. These 2 metal cylinders are the worst, probably. But yeah, you can see those cracks stemming from that injector hole. This cylinder barely has a little crack. Tiny little crack on that one. This one's pretty noticeable as well. And this one barely has a little crack on the one side. It's hard to see. But yeah. These 3 inner cylinders are real prominent with their cracks. All right, my engine's officially down for the count. Looking back on it, I think the failure was because when I initially bought the truck, ever since I've had it, it's always pushed a little bit of coolant out the overflow tube. So it always has seemed like it's built a little bit too much pressure in the coolant system. However, the coolant system still seemed to work good. You could leave the truck idling, it would heat up, the temperature switch would kick on the fan, it would run for a sec, and then cool back down and then shut the fan off. However, during this whole time, my temperature gauge has not been working, so I knew it was kind of risky to be driving the truck. However, after seeing the coolant fan respond so well and the engine seemed to run good on short little trips, I figured it was safe enough to go down the highway, especially since it'd just be a nice highway cruise without towing anything or putting much load on the engine. But unfortunately, that was a risk I probably shouldn't have taken, because if we had a working temperature gauge, maybe I could have caught that overheat a little bit faster and kept the head from cracking so bad. Although back to what I think caused it, I think maybe the head was already a little bit cracked, or the head gasket was leaking a little bit, and that was causing a little bit of exhaust gases to get into the cooling system. That's what would cause a little bit of dribble out the overflow tube that I was noticing. And because of that, a bubble formed in the coolant system and hit the water pump. And then once the water pump hit that air pocket, it cavitated and stopped circulating coolant. And I think that's what mainly caused my overheat. And I did lose a Subaru engine a couple years ago due to that same scenario, where a bubble formed in the coolant system, hit the water pump, cavitated, overheated, blew the head gasket. So I'm assuming that's what happened with the semi-truck engine. One thing that still confuses me is I do have oil and coolant mixing right now, as well as exhaust gases into the coolant system. And I feel like cracks in the head would only contribute to exhaust getting in the coolant jackets and whatnot. So let me know in the comments if you think that could lead to the coolant and oil mixing, or maybe that coolant and oil mixing is evident of another head gasket leak somewhere. That maybe also contributes to the head gasket leaking some exhaust into the coolant system to make that bubble. Now, it's not the end of the world that we lost this engine, because I've really always wanted a 3406B Caterpillar engine. And also, my current truck has a brake saver unit, which I love, but my engine doesn't have any Jake brakes. So I think we're going to try to track down a 3406B with some Jake brakes, so I can have Jake brakes and a brake saver, and that'll be my dream combination. But anyways, I'm not going to worry about getting the engine running anytime soon, because I'm just going to dive right into the big grandiose plans I had for this truck anyways. So it's going to go under the knife for quite a while, get a ton of modification done to it. I'll paint you guys a picture right here. All right, so here's our cab over with a bunch of frame rail started right now. So yes, this thing's going to get stretched super long. So you guys probably have the same thoughts as me, like, oh, stretched cab over is cool and all, but that kind of goes against the purpose of having the cab over, because it's so cool to have the cab and the engine so compact that you can have a short wheelbase. But do not fret, because all of this chassis is going to be perfectly utilized. All right, let's start adding some axles. We'll have 1 axle, 2, sorry, these circles are so bad, 3, because tri-drives are awesome. And depending on how I'm feeling, I might throw a 4th little dropper axle, single tire, one that steers a little bit, because we're going to need a lot of weight capacity where we're going with this. And we're not even done there. Going to make it real interesting and make this truck twin steer. Add another axle up here. And here's the reason why I only have 1 line for the frame just yet. Go ahead and fill in some frame in here. And then I'm thinking I'm going to make a custom frame section that kind of arches down. Like that, like a bridge, you know? So now my frame won't sag throughout this area. So now, from there, boom, we'll have some nice stacks. And then a big old section of some living quarters here. And so this thing's going to end up being the greatest toter home you've ever seen. Now, it's not like these living quarters are going to add that much weight. So why do we have all these axles? Well, that's because, so I'll also end up getting a big old trailer, maybe 3 or 4 axles here. And then on the trailer is going to go my dream project. I'm keeping a secret from you guys for now. And this will be a vehicle that's extremely heavy, cost me a gargantuan amount of dollars, and it has been something that has just captivated my brain for the last 6 years. I've just been sitting on the design in my head all this time, but I think this year is finally going to be the year that we're going to be able to start on it, but I'm not willing to release any more secrets on it just yet. So just stay tuned. Hopefully in the next few months, we'll be able to release the build plan for that. But for now, the focus is going to be on the semi-truck. And this will be good because we won't be putting the cart before the horse. And this truck's going to be so cut up into pieces over the next few months that I don't need the engine running anyways. So that's that. I gotta get ready to hit the road because I'm going to drown the sorrows of losing my semi-truck engine by going on a little storm chase trip. And if you guys watched the little video I released a little while back, you'll know that chasing tornadoes is a hobby that I find very exciting and enjoy very much. So we got some severe weather coming to Wyoming, which is great because that's right next door to Utah. Don't have to drive too far. And then the rest of this video is just going to be storm chasing content if I end up finding anything good out in Wyoming. So by all means, if you're just here because you wanted to see the semi-truck content, feel free to click off. But if you want to see me try to get as close as I can to tornadoes, feel free to stick around for the rest of the video. Look how much this is cranking right here. Come on. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Here we go. There's a funnel. Let's go. That's beautiful. Ah, just got ripped apart. This is still cranking right here over me. Still very turbulent over there. Man, once these two areas converge right here in a sec, that might happen. Oh my gosh, this is really taking on a nice cone shape now. Something beautiful might be about to happen. Good RFD surge right now. This wind's coming out of the storm, hitting the ground and wrapping into the tornado. Oh, a tornado warning, how convenient. Oh, they just barely nick the ground and then lift back up. Look at that lowering back in there. Let's get a little closer and check that out. Definitely gotta keep our eyes peeled on this guy though. Still churning right there. Good plant right in front of me any second now. Oh yeah, loads of winds feeding into here right now. Oh yeah, on the ground right over there. On the ground, yep. Down. It's kind of coming towards us. Look at that! Oh, it's kind of creeping towards us. Keep drifting that way, girl. Don't be impacted. Come on! Come on! Let's go! Wow, I think I'm safe in this position. Still persistent over there. Let's try to get back that way. Look at that. Oh, we gotta get back to that. Let's go, let's go. Alrighty, we're ahead of this storm now. There's no road networks to get us back that way just yet. So we're just gonna have to track to the side of it now. It's kind of putting down some suspicious lowerings, but I don't think it's producing again. Loads of chaser convergence up here. Have to keep our eyes peeled. Oh yeah, there's a tornado back in there. Oh, it's rain wrapped, you can't see it in the rain. Oh, that's beautiful. Just try to pull off here. Oh, there's so much rain. Look at that tornado. Wow. Wow, that's a nice tornado. Alright, I just lifted. Oh, we're doing so much rain right here. So much rain and wind. That looks pretty disorganized at this point. I think we'll creep ahead. Ourselves inside the tornado vortex right now. Silly. Yeah, I was a little hairy there for a sec. Sheltering behind my car right now. Look at this, forming right in front of us. Man, as that was circling over the road, I was driving this way. All these crazy rain curtains up above me, and then right as I got out of it, it all lowered down to the ground. Look at this wind field, dude. Look at that wind field. Look at all those rain curtains just ripping. Good grief. Look at all this wind ripping in right there. Giant tornado right overhead. Man, I swear this whole thing plants right on top of me. It's supposed to keep moving in that direction, so it's supposed to be moving away from me. We'll see what happens. Come on, it's finally doing something. Finally, it's throwing a funnel down. Oh my gosh. Look at this pond. All the hill going into that. Wow, that's beautiful though. Yeah, that's on the ground now. Oh, that's a good looking tornado. Wow, that's ridiculous. Let's go. Oh, she's planted good now. Oh, she's really getting wide. Let's go. Broke my mirror. Wow, that's sick. Cut back through the hook, through the rain and the hail. Now we have a new look at this new developing cyclone here. The storm is recirculating rotation. Now we have a new area of rotation right here. Yes, sir, we got another one formed. Cena's coming right towards me. Not sure how much longer I can hold my position here. I think I'm going to hedge forward so they can pass me. Keep it. I think it's wrapping this way. Make me a little nervous. I'm gonna flip this up just for debris. It's sitting right there. I'm really nervous if it's going to hook this way. The issues the wind fields I'm dealing with now are just so dang broad. So this thing could easily expand and reach out right to where I'm at right now. Looks like more than anything it's lifting a little bit. The car's rocking. Oh boy, it's right there. It is right there. Okay, she's planted now. Good grief. This guy's blocking me. I kind of just want to flee that way and let it pass by. Oh boy. Whoo-wee. This is a real touch and go right now. All right, planted back on the ground. As long as it stays out in that field, I'm fine, but this thing could easily whip right this way. Just ripping directly overhead. Ground. Oh my goodness. Look at it, it's right out in that field. Gosh, this camera is not capturing how close this dang thing is. All right, I think we're safe. It's pretty much past us. I don't think it'll loop back over here. Oh, look at that. Look at that shape. I think this rotation is kind of decaying, but it's still holding a pretty beautiful shape. We're in Hot Springs, Wyoming right now. And this storm just will not quit producing tornadoes. Look at this. This vortex is thickening back up. I've lost visual on it with all this rain. Alright, I punched through the core, and now we have a view on the updraft face again. But as I was going through the core, freaking baseball-sized hunk of hail snuck past my roof, snuck past my windshield guard, and nailed that corner and splintered a whole bunch of plastic there. Oh well. Tornado sirens are going. Things are still churning here pretty good. See if anything organizes out of this area. Alright, rotation's consolidating again right here. This storm might do it once again. You can see the clouds and the rain bands circulating around right here. Let's see what happens. Big old some hail. Go back off this storm a little bit. Youch! Alright, there's definitely a tornado back in there, but shrouded in rain. We're just getting pelted by the outer bands of the circulation, so we gotta get a little more space in between us and the storm, and hopefully we can find a tornado out of the rain from a distance. Oh yeah, if you look way back in there, there's a tube. Let's go back and pursue that. Should have left so soon. I fled to get ahead of this storm. I threw down that really pretty tube. It's roping out now. Some good vorticity right there though. Come on. It's really taking shape now. Come on. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I'm calling that on the ground. Woo! Scored a tornado. Woo! That was beautiful.